What a great conversation we're having off air, and I feel like we have to go back on air now because some of this stuff is so interesting. So I asked a question off air expecting a very different answer than I got, and that was, when you say you have someone who needs some sort of neurosurgery, they come to either one of the hospitals and the family, and they meet you, ladies, and I asked, is it ever a situation where they would prefer to have a male neurosurgeon, or they're a little bit apprehensive because you're females, and both of you looked at me and were like, yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, most of the time they would you would talk to them about the condition the patient has, and they would say, let me give us some time to think about it. And some of them actually go talk to our teachers, our senior colleagues who are male, and some of them will be honest enough to come back and say, I asked so and so, and they said, yeah, it's okay, I can go ahead with the surgery with you. So we still, and this is a global problem, so we're still in a patriarchal society where they don't think women can do this, but we are here to change that. So as I was telling you, we are now seeing more women in medical school, more women than men, but those coming to the surgical fields are still fewer. So at neurosurgery, we're only receiving 5 to 6% of this.
It's interesting you say that. If before today, if someone was to think of a neurosurgeon, I would think of a man.
True.
I really would.
I think it's about the images that people put out. I think if for example, when people talk about Kenya outside abroad, people know more about the wildlife than they do about the people. And you think, hey, but there's 50 million of us. Come on, did you miss that?
Yeah. So and a good percentage that need neurosurgery at some point. Yeah.
But so that's the same thing with most of the women surgeons, of course, are younger in terms of relative to their peers, the male faculty. But we're here, and we're also, we've done the same exams, we've gone through the same rigmarole. But you still find that in our culture, a lot of leadership responsibility is assumed as male. So like the story I was telling you, I talked to a patient, and this is, as you know, I trained in the UK before I came here. It's no different. I'll go see a patient, and then when I finish, they'll turn down to my student who's a guy, sometimes it's even a medical student, and said, so Dr. what do you think? And that's because we automatically assume that authority is vested in the guy. What we are fortunate for both of us is, you can't get to this stage without mentorship and allyship. Yeah. We have had trainers and supporters. Those guys who are in Aga Khan know that I work with Dr. Mogere quite closely, and you can't succeed without, the support of your male colleagues. So I couldn't have succeeded in Aga Khan without his support and his mentorship, and the same is true for Sylvia.
Yeah, so I trained at University of Nairobi, and my first mentor when I was an undergraduate was a neurosurgeon, Dr. Kiboi. So when I came back for residency, I already knew him, and I was also supported by my teachers, both at the University of Nairobi and Kenyatta National Hospital. And that has made a difference because they handheld me, taught me all the skills I know, and it's been good.
It takes a village to raise a neurosurgeon.
True.
It does. Now tell us a little bit about the Congress of Neurological Surgeons Foundation's Future Women Leaders in Neurosurgery Scholarship. That is a mouthful, but I can imagine it must have been hard to be awarded that scholarship.
So just a little bit of background. The Congress of Neurosurgeons is one of the biggest neurosurgical bodies in the US, and they formed a foundation. And within it, they have the Women in Neurosurgery, which is celebrating 30 years this year. And so they got together and decided that they wanted to pipeline more women by supporting them in leadership, academia, research, and advocacy development. So they put out a call out for the scholarship opportunity. And, we're delighted to say that there were 3 people awarded that, an American lady and the 2 Kenyan girls that are talking here. So, in the world, 2 of them are Kenyans, and we're really delighted about this opportunity. Yes. What that involves is we're both going to be attending the Congress in October and networking and learning, and both of us are going to go in different leadership training over the course of the year.
Yes.
And hopefully, use that to anchor and develop the position of women in neurosurgery.
Okay, I have a question. Congratulations for that. Yeah. That's huge. But I have a question.
Yes.
And this is not on our list of questions. Okay? So you're not going to know the question.
Here we go.
There are days I wake up and I'm just like, I don't really feel like doing my show this morning. It's not often, but once in a while on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and it's been a long weekend of work, and I just wake up and I'm like, oh God, I got to go and do this thing. You guys can't have those days. Surely when you're dealing with someone's brain.
We can. We are also big on work-life balance.
Right.
So at the end of the day, like she said, we are between 35 and 37 neurosurgeons. So someone's life depends on you. And so if it's my day to work, I have to go. However, I make plans in such a way that I have days that I take off, and I literally switch off my phone to take care of my children and actually rest and rejuvenate, so that when I come back, then I'm in a good state of mind and to help the people.
And then also your mind changes, yeah? When you're called because of a patient, especially because, like, for every minute that you lose in attending to somebody, millions of brain cells are lost. You just go into this auto drive. There is, it's part of the training. You just focus on the patient, and that's all that matters.
So you can just leave everything on the outside, on the periphery, and just...
When you're operating, it's a state of zen. There is nothing that matters but what you're doing.
Flow. Now, as a woman, there are certain biological realities, and that is our womb, our womb. Now, do you have children? What was the decision behind having, not having? Because that would take up your time, your money, your heart space, all of these things. That plays into it, surely.
So I'm a mother of 3 children,
Wow.
and I made the decision to have my first child during residency. But I also understood the implications that I lost time, and also carrying the pregnancy over the 9 months was a challenge. So that's one of the things we talk about when we meet other women surgeons, that yes, you need to have children, or you want to have children, but you must understand that you may lag behind a little bit more than the male colleagues, but you'll catch up. So if you get that makes sense. Then you also need a good support system from your spouse and family, because there'll be days my children need me and yet I'm at work. So I have an excellent support system from my siblings, my relatives, who can step in. Even the school can call them and tell them, you're unable to get Sylvia, and they're able to attend to my children.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
Yeah.
and when they are on half term or they've closed school, then I have to take time off to just spend time with them. Yes.
Okay. Now, when you, there obviously, in your line of work, you have successes in what you do, and I don't want to call them failures, but there are probably times when you can't help someone as much as you would like to. You lose a patient, things like that. What is the process after I'll just call it a tough day at the office?
So it depends what we mean by a tough day. Sometimes it's really difficult discussions you're having with someone. Because, first of all, unlike other forms of medicine, nobody looks forward to meeting a neurosurgeon professionally.
No.
It's
I wasn't even looking forward to this conversation on air. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, we accept that it's a very stressful time. And that's why we tell people, come with someone, to hear you out. What do we do as professionals? We have to let off steam. If it's a process or a problem that has happened, within the hospitals, we have systems where we evaluate what has happened. But as individuals, we need to let off steam. So I like to go for walks. I love to cook. So if you find me cooking like 10,000 cakes, that just means I need to get something off my mind.
Right.
We all have different outlets. Some people run. But so there are 2 things that are very important: a supportive network outside of work, and you must cultivate that, and something that you do to let your hair down. And the second one is supportive colleagues, because you have to reflect with each other and learn from what happened and work out what you're going to do the next time. We still have challenges in terms of how people access our services. A lot of times people come to us late in the game, and that is really, really sad when you think you're around but people didn't know you're there or aren't able to afford. So that's a wider conversation perhaps for us to have about how do we fund people, and how do those people access our services so we can help them earlier on.
I have a really silly question. I apologize in advance. Have you ever seen someone, or could you see someone and notice from externally, there's something?
Yes. Sometimes I walk on the streets and I'm like, shall I go tell them?
No, really?
Because neurology is like the electrics of the system. Like when your laptop is not working. Yeah. I mean, you walk on the street and like you're walking and you look at that person and you're saying, that problem is on this part of the brain or this part of the spinal cord. But those are awkward conversations to have on the street.
I mean, if you walked up and going, there's something not quite right in your head, and I just need to let you know that we can help. No, I mean,
especially if you want to be a geek and now mention things like, it's in your medulla oblongata or your pons or your where. Then people just look at you like, get a life.
There those neurology memes coming up.
Yeah, exactly. But more so when we talk about tough day at the office. And I don't know if this has happened to you. I don't know what the success rate is in your industry. When you lose a patient, that has to have a serious effect on you as individuals. And I'm just curious. Probably maybe no one else is, but I'm just curious how you. I mean, I'm sure that's all part of the medical school training, but what is the coping strategy behind that? Because I mean, losing someone in your line of work, I mean, surely that must be a hard thing to deal with.
So, as we said, most people don't want to come and see the neurosurgeons, because what is bringing you to us is definitely either affecting your brain or your spine. So there are those patients we see and we know we need to talk about end-of-life discussions. In our culture, death is not a conversation we like having. So that's the biggest challenge. The patients I struggle with are the trauma patients, because this is someone who left their home okay, and then they're brought to you. You look at them and you know that chances of survival is almost minimal based on the injuries they've sustained. So as she says, you evaluate what this patient has. Is there a possibility of this patient being saved or not? And if it's not possible for you to save a life, it's a conversation you have to have with the relatives or the family members. And it's tough for them to accept that this has changed or this is going to happen. It's also tough on us. But as you continuously see them, it's given me a totally different outlook on death and acceptance and learning to live now, being to do what you need to do now, because tomorrow is not assured.
Even for you guys,
Yes.
exactly, yes.
I was going to make a comment also about that. I think, although there's a part of you that is about accepting what is within what you can change, there's also that eternal optimism. When I was an intern, I worked in a stroke unit, and a third of the patients passed on. We now have more therapies. That is meaning that not only are people surviving, but they are thriving, you know. So, like, for example, in Aga Khan, once again, we have a dedicated stroke service that has every element that you need for that. And so I am encouraged that whatever has happened now, I ask myself, what can we do better? And, you know, like, I was just laughing outside and saying it's a good thing that Sylvia and I are friends, because we have a long career ahead of us. And, you know, within the group, we talk to each other and we say, how would you manage that next time? Yeah.
Now, this is the support system you speak of.
Yes.
So you just the fact that you are 6 of 35, 6 female of 35 Kenyan neurosurgeons or neurosurgeons in Kenya. You are good news stories. What would you tell little girls or parents of little girls who want to go into medicine or neurosurgery?
The first thing is I will ask parents to let the children choose for themselves. I think that it is fantastic to want to be a doctor, but the provision of healthcare is so much broader than just being a doctor. You know, we have speech and language therapists, we have neurophysiologists. There's so many, everything you can think of. There are people who do that. You know, since I've been getting involved in the media, people have been bringing their children, and the first thing I ask is, what is your child's true passion? It's not what is accepted in society, but what is your child's true passion? That's where they will excel. That's where at 3 a.m, they'll find the solutions to the problems that they're having. But if you want to be a neurosurgeon, this is what you need to do at every stage. Take the opportunity to make the most of it. When you're in medical school, learn as much as you can, because although we say neurosurgery as surgery, actually it is more medicine, some of which we operate. So you need to know a lot of general medicine to manage neurosurgical patients. The second is reach out to us. I think we were saying before, there are 7 counties that have neurosurgeons. Those are in Kisumu. You have in Eldoret at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. You have in Nairobi, the public institutions like the University of Nairobi, that's Kenyatta. You've got in Kiambu, Thika Level 5, Embu. Nyeri also has and the coast. Which one have I missed?
Kisumu.
Kisumu. So you need to come and see what we actually do, so that before you even start that journey, you have a better idea about what it involves, and then put yourself out there. Don't give up trying, and get in.
And it also needs, you have to understand that neurosurgery is lifelong learning, and the passion is really critical. And we're also big on mentorship. So if you're considering doing neurosurgery, reach out to those neurosurgeons in those 7 counties and get to see what they do, how their lives look like, how their days look like. That gives you an image of what you're getting yourself into.
Thank you so much for your time and for your work and for your just coming in, and I'm pretty sure you're busy. So this is amazing that you came in.
What does the rest of the day look like for you guys?
Just hanging out, some cocktails, whatever.
I've got an academic meeting. I've got to see a couple of patients and run a clinic. And then plan for surgery tomorrow.
Casual.
Me too. I've got to see patients today in preparation for theatre tomorrow.
My goodness. Okay, well, I don't know. In our industry, they say break a leg. I don't know what they say in your industry. So just leave it there with good luck tomorrow, both of you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
11 minutes to 9. Good morning.
Poor Bobo. Bored at